Let me tell you about a place where life moves at the pace of a gentle breeze, where the most pressing question you'll hear is, what's for second breakfast? Welcome to the Shire, green, peaceful, and full of hobbits, with feet so tough they can walk barefoot on pebbles without so much as a wince. If Middle-earth is a sprawling epic of kings, wizards, and dragons, the Shire is the warm little nook where nothing much happens, and that's exactly the way they like it. Now, if you've never met a hobbit, and chances are you haven't, because they prefer to be left alone, let me paint a picture for you. Hobbits are short, cheerful folk with round faces, rosy cheeks, and eyes that twinkle as if they've just heard a very good joke, which they probably have. And their feet, oh, the feet, are sturdy, bare, and covered with just enough curly hair to make socks entirely unnecessary. But what sets hobbits apart more than their looks is their lifestyle. Hobbits have a knack for finding joy in the simplest of things, and they cling to their comforts, like a took clings to a particularly good mushroom pie. Of course, there are exceptions. Every once in a while, a Baggins or a took might go off on some adventure, and the rest of the Shire will tut and shake their heads, muttering something about madness and wizards meddling where they shouldn't. But most hobbits live firmly rooted to their homes, preferring a good meal and a warm hearth to any wild tales about treasure or trolls. You see, hobbits don't believe in unnecessary excitement. They've perfected the art of doing very little and doing it well, and they're all the happier for it. Take a day in the life of your average hobbit. The sun rises, birds are chirping, and somewhere in Hobbiton, someone is already pulling a fresh loaf out of the oven. Breakfast is eaten with enthusiasm, and not long after, the same enthusiasm is applied to second breakfast. Hobbits don't rush through meals, they savour them. A cup of tea here, a plate of bacon and eggs there. It's not just about filling bellies, it's about enjoying the company of others, or the quiet peace of a garden bench. Between meals, hobbits go about their work, though you won't find them doing anything too taxing. Gardening is a favourite pastime, as is brewing, baking, and tending to livestock, mostly because all these things contribute to eating later on. You might spot a hobbit singing to their cabbages. It helps them grow, or so they'll insist, while another one puffs on a pipe as they watch the sun lazily crawl across the sky. Hobbits take pride in their work, not because they want riches or renown, but because a tidy garden and a well-stocked pantry bring a satisfaction that gold never could. And then, when the work is done, and by work we mean just enough to justify a hearty lunch, the rest of the day is theirs to enjoy. Some hobbits will gather at the Green Dragon Inn, where the ale is always fresh, and the conversation flows as freely as the pints. Others might sit under a tree with a book, or pass the time trading stories. Hobbits love a good story, and whether it's true or not hardly matters, so long as it's told well. If you're starting to think that hobbit life sounds suspiciously idyllic, you wouldn't be wrong, but it's not all loafing about and eating pies. Well, actually, it mostly is, but that's the beauty of it. Hobbits don't see the point in rushing. They know the world is big and full of strange folk doing strange things. But why get caught up in all that when you have everything you need right in front of you? A warm home, a full pantry, and good company. What more could anyone want? And yet, for all their love of quiet simplicity, there's one thing hobbits will never turn down: a celebration. You see, hobbits understand something that most folk forget. Life doesn't have to be grand to be good. It's the small things that matter. A well-tended garden, a crackling fire, the smell of something sweet baking in the oven. In the Shire, these small things are celebrated every day. And in a world that's full of dragons, wars, and dark lords, maybe that's the kind of life worth holding on to. By the way, if you're still here watching me wax poetic about pumpkin patches and hobbit feet, maybe you could do me a little favour and push like button. Go on, puff on your imaginary pipe and hit subscribe while you're at it. Who knows? It might just be the most adventurous thing you do today. And I promise, no wizards will come knocking on your door. If you ever find yourself waking up in the Shire, the first thing you'll notice is the smell of breakfast. Not just any breakfast, mind you, A Hobbit breakfast. It's the kind of meal that could make a dwarf pause mid-march and reconsider his priorities. Bacon sizzles in the pan, loaves of fresh bread cool on windowsills, and pots of honey sit ready to sweeten tea or smear onto warm buttered toast. First breakfast is a gentle easing into the day. Second breakfast is where things get serious. Sausages, eggs, mushrooms fried in butter, and perhaps a slice or two of apple pie. It's a meal that feels less like a snack and more like a statement. A statement that says, the morning isn't over yet. Once second breakfast is done, it's time for work, or what passes for work in the Shire. Hobbits are farmers, gardeners, bakers, and brewers. They're millers and woodworkers. And occasionally, when the need arises, they're builders. Take gardening, for example. In the Shire, a garden isn't just a place to grow food. It's a matter of pride. You won't find a single unruly weed in Sam Gamgee's plot, and if you look closely, you might even catch a hobbit singing to their tomatoes. Helps them ripen, they'll say with a knowing nod, as though tomatoes wouldn't dare disappoint a hobbit who took the trouble to serenade them. And when the gardening is done and the tools are set aside, there's always time for tea or elevenses, to be precise. A cup of tea, a scone or two, and perhaps a bit of jam. Because by then, hobbits have worked hard, in their estimation, and a little rest is well earned. Afternoons in the Shire are reserved for life's quieter pleasures. You might find a hobbit sitting beneath an apple tree with a book, the dappled sunlight warming their face as they doze off midway through a chapter. Others take to fishing by the banks of the water, tossing lines into the river, not so much to catch anything, but to enjoy the feeling of being there, of hearing the water flow, watching the dragonflies buzz lazily above the reeds, and knowing there's no reason to hurry. For the more social hobbits, afternoons are spent at the Green Dragon Inn or Bywater Pool. The Green Dragon is as close to a hobbit daycare as you'll get, where gossip flows as freely as the ale. If something happens in the Shire, say someone's garden gnome goes mysteriously missing, you can bet that by the next afternoon, the tale has made its rounds and grown far more dramatic than it started. It wasn't just any gnome, they'll say. It was carved by the elves. Of course, the truth doesn't matter nearly as much as the telling, and for hobbits, a good story is always worth repeating. As the sun begins to set, hobbits gather once more for dinner, a proper feast, especially if there's company. A stew simmers on the stove, bread is sliced, and pies come out of the oven golden and steaming. Children play in the fading light, while the grown-ups sit together, swapping stories, puffing on pipes, and enjoying the glow of another peaceful day. The fire crackles, and mugs of ale are raised in toast to nothing in particular, just the joy of being there, of being home. Then, when the stars are high and the Shire is bathed in silver light, it's time for supper. Yes, supper, because really, what good is a bedtime without one last bite to eat? A bowl of creamy soup, a slice of cheese, or maybe a leftover bit of pie. It's just enough to settle a hobbit's stomach before they climb into bed. And as they drift off to sleep, the sound of crickets humming outside their windows and the smell of flowers drifting through the air. Hobbits dream of quiet days and full bellies. For them, life doesn't need to be an adventure, it just needs to be good. And in the Shire, it always is. If there's one thing hobbits love even more than a good meal or nap, it's a good party. You see, hobbits have perfected the art of celebration, turning even the smallest occasion into a reason to gather, feast, and make merry. In fact, if you were to wander into the Shire at the right time, you might find yourself swept up into a festival where the food never runs out, the music never stops, and the laughter echoes across the hills. Take birthdays in the Shire. Well, they do things differently. Here, the birthday hobbit is the one who gives the gifts, and no one, absolutely no one, goes home empty-handed. Imagine that. You turn up for a party, and instead of bringing something, you leave with a shiny trinket, a pouch of sweets, or maybe a fine wooden pipe, if the birthday hobbit is feeling particularly generous. Of course, this custom is about more than just generosity. Hobbits understand the value of community, and a birthday isn't just about one person. It's a celebration of everyone. Friends, family, neighbours, and even the occasional outsider all come together to share in the joy. And when the party gets going, you'd be hard-pressed to find a merrier place in Middle-earth. Now, if there's one party that stands above all others, it's the one thrown by Bilbo Baggins for his 11th birthday. A party so grand that even hobbits, who are notoriously difficult to impress, spoke of it for years afterward. There were fireworks, proper ones, made by Gandalf himself, that lit up the night sky like dragonfire. There were songs, dances, and a feast so large that it probably took a month to finish the leftovers. And then, of course, there was Bilbo's famous disappearing act, which left half the Shire spluttering into their mugs. Mad as a hatter, that Baggins, they said. Then there is hospitality. This is the cornerstone of Hobbit life. Visitors are welcomed with open arms, and a Hobbit home is never too full for one more seat at the table. You'd be hard-pressed to leave a Hobbit's home hungry. Even if you only stop by to say hello, you'll likely find yourself seated with a plate of biscuits and a mug of tea before you've had time to refuse. Not that refusing would help. Hobbits consider it downright rude for a guest to leave without eating, and they'll insist, with such cheerful stubbornness, that you'll eventually give in. And it's this spirit of hospitality, this joy in sharing what they have, that makes the Shire so special. Hobbits aren't warriors, kings, or wizards. They don't care about power or glory, and they certainly don't care about adventures. What they care about is home, about food and friendship, about sitting in the sunshine with a good pipe or standing beneath the party tree, surrounded by music and laughter. So why do we love the Hobbits so much? Perhaps it's because they remind us of something we all long for, the beauty of a simple life, a life where joy is found in a warm meal, a good story, and the company of those we love. Hobbits don't need riches or kingdoms to be happy. For them, happiness is a garden full of vegetables, a pantry full of pies, and a heart full of contentment. Maybe that's what makes the Shire feel so timeless. It's a place untouched by the troubles of the wider world, a haven where life moves slowly, where days are measured by meals and nights are filled with the soft hum of crickets. And maybe, in our busy, noisy world, there's something to be learned from the Hobbits. Slow down, eat well, laugh often, and always keep the kettle warm for unexpected guests. And so, dear friends, we leave the Shire, though not without a fond farewell. If you ever find yourself longing for a place where life is simple, where the food is plentiful, and where strangers are welcomed like old friends, you know where to go. Just follow the rolling hills, look for a round door, and knock gently. Chances are, a cheerful voice will call, "Come in, come in!" And you'll soon find yourself seated at a table with a plate of something delicious. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Hobbit life in the Shire. If you enjoyed this little tour, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss any future videos. And as the Hobbits say when raising a glass, may your beer be cold, your garden green, and your pantry always full.